The Bengals won 9, one fewer. And people are like, do we got to fire the coach? I mean, we're keeping Burrow and Jamar Chase. We got to get rid of everybody. Well, the expectations for Denver, rookie quarterback, Sean Payton in a rebuild, pretty low in that division with Harbaugh and Andy Reid. They won 10 games. You'd have thought they lost a Super Bowl. They got just as close. Since he won 9, let's get rid of everybody. Right? Happiness is tied to expectations. So I saw a headline this morning. Caleb Williams looks like a different quarterback in Ben Johnson's new offense. It's the preseason. Last year, the Jags, the Titans, the Jets, and the Bears went undefeated in the preseason. Okay? Settle down. So let's do a hard count here. Let's take the Bears' schedule. And I'm going to be optimistic, Colin. So I'm going to give Chicago a split in division. They win one and lose one with the Packers. They split with the Lions. They split with the Vikings. They went 1-5 against those teams last year, and they're already a road dog. They're already a home dog in week 1 against Minnesota. They're a dog at home against Minnesota. I'm going to give them a split, 3-3. I'm incredibly optimistic. They don't do well in division. I'm going to give them a split. I'm also going to give them 4 more wins. Hosting Dallas, hosting New Orleans, hosting the Giants, and hosting Cleveland. No upsets. They win all of them. So now I got them at 7-3. But I'm also going to say they're going to lose at Washington, at Baltimore, at Philly, and at San Francisco. So now we're at 7-7. And again, I gave them a split in division. They're 7-7 with 3 games left. I'll continue my optimism. 3 games left on the schedule now. At Las Vegas, I'll give them a win, but they may go in as an underdog. At Cincinnati, they lose to Joe Burrow. That's reasonable. And I'll have them beating Pittsburgh at home in a close game. I think Pittsburgh's got a really good roster. You know what that gives the Bears? Being incredibly optimistic, 9-8. In a division where Kevin O'Connell and Matt LaFleur and Dan Campbell have already proven they're elite head coaches. 2 of them are scheme guys. 1 of them's a culture guy. They're all really, really elite. We don't know that about Ben Johnson.
Okay. Guys. Wow. Okay. Oh my gosh. This has been quite the roller coaster ride. So Friday came around. I think it was Friday. And Colin had a take where he's like, he compared Caleb Williams to potentially like James Harden and Carmelo Anthony. In the negative, mind you, right? These are players that haven't evolved and grown. Just because they're great, just because they're talented, doesn't mean that just because you're talented and great doesn't mean that you're going to be able to continue to grow and be great and get it, so to speak. And I was like, well, that's ridiculous. Those players didn't reach their true potential because of very specific reasons, especially more mental, behavioral, etc. Like, to put that on Caleb is not fair. That's kind of absurd. And then the preseason game comes around, and Colin's like, he looks like Brett Favre out there. And I was like, okay, like, let's, the reason why I can appreciate, why I try so hard to be as consistent as I possibly can, because then it gives me the room to be able to say positive and negative things without people, at least people who are watching me with their own grounded, clear eyes. They see that I'm not just saying something positive just for the sake of saying positive, and they see that I'm not saying something negative just for the sake of negative. I always try to bring nuance, and it's like, that was an amazing preseason game, and I loved everything I saw out of Caleb Williams, but I was like, it was preseason, number 1. Number 2, it was just like, scripted plays. Like, I want to see Caleb in, the 3rd quarter, week 3. Like, that's where we're going to start to see, like, what's this relationship? How much growth and development is Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams looking like? Like, let's be smart. Let's be patient. Let's, and we're going to see some struggles and some growth. I expect to not see struggles in the first half as much with some scripted plays, because I believe Caleb Williams is good enough of a quarterback to be able to stick that landing. And I certainly know for a fact that Ben Johnson is great enough at scripting those drives and setting up his receivers and his offense to have a lot of success. So, you know, and I kind of had to push back on Colin just being like, he looks like Brett Favre out there. And I was like, well, just a few days ago, you said he was James Harden in the negative and Carmelo Anthony. And now it's like, it's just preseason. Let's relax. And it's like, I just made a video the other day where Colin was right about Sam Darnold and the Seattle Seahawks, because Sam went like, what was it? I think it was like 4 for 4 for like 39 yards, you know? And I was like, well, wait, like, what are we doing here? And I was like, yo, listen, I believe in Sam Darnold and the Seahawks, and I'm excited to see what they could do. But like, you know, it's a preseason game. I only care so much. Like, I liked a lot what I saw out of the O-line and whatnot. But like, I just, and that's why I thought it was kind of weird to do a where Colin was right and where Colin was wrong about Sam Darnold based off of a 4-pass preseason game. And now it's just like, all right, everyone's high on the Bears, but it's just preseason, relax. And it's just like, this is where you just get the whiplash. And it's just like, well, at this point, and listen, people try to call Colin out for flip-flopping, and I don't always see it that way. I do see, I am a firm believer in being able to change your mind and have your opinion evolve. I that is actually one of the biggest reasons why Colin's my favorite commentator out there. Because I don't like when people get married and stuck to takes. I don't enjoy that. Especially when you see, that's why, yeah, I love First Things First, obviously, but when they pick their teams, they have their teams that they pick, and they're like, oh, this is my Super Bowl pick. And then you see Brew force it, or Wilds, or Mangini, like, they keep trying to find ways why the Texans are actually going to get to the Super Bowl this year. And it's like, it's clear the Texans are not good enough. Same thing with the Packers. Brew picked the Packers, and he's like, the Packers are going to be able to. And it's like, no, they're not. They're clearly not good enough. It's okay to admit that. It doesn't mean you were wrong. It just, the take just wasn't correct, like, which just makes you wrong, but like in a different way. Like, it's okay. And so I appreciate that someone like Colin is willing to change his mind. So I don't see it as flip-flop. But at this point, and I take pride in being able to actually really understand, because I watch all these shows, obviously, and dissect them and unpack them. Like, I take pride in being able to, like, have my finger on the pulse of, like, what are the views of the media as a whole, right? I mean, I offer commentary not only on the games and my own personal views, but then I like to have the more meta conversations about the media and just the overarching conversation in the sports world in any given moment. And that's why I interact so much in the comment section, because then I feel as though that I can speak, you know, pretty accurately on what fans are talking about, because I'm literally interacting with you guys every single day. And at this point, I'm just like, well, I don't even know what the conversation is anymore about Caleb. Like, which direction are we going in right now? Like, where do we all land right now? It's just such whiplash, man. It's such, you know, swings here. I will agree with the sentiment of what I think Colin is ultimately trying to say in terms of like expectations and how for one team winning 9 games is a disaster, while another team winning 10 games is an absolute home run and victory. And for me, in year one, with your year 2 quarterback, you know, year 1 with Ben Johnson, year 2 with your year 2 quarterback, and so year 1 with the both of them together, I just need to see you going in the right direction. So are the Bears overhyped? I mean, are they overhyped are people predicting that they're going to the Super Bowl and that Caleb Williams is going to be an MVP front runner? Then sure. I think that's probably overhyped. But do I think that they're going to be significantly better than they were last year? Are they still going to have some growing pains? Is Caleb Williams going to be perfect, or is he going to be Patrick Mahomes from 2018? Like, it's like, come on. And Ben Johnson's allowed to make some mistakes and have, you know, the moment get away from him once or twice, because he's still figuring out how to be a head coach. And he's still trying to figure out how to maximize Caleb Williams. And Caleb Williams was clearly incredibly raw. And during this year, Ben Johnson is definitely going to try to figure out how much can Caleb Williams fit into what Ben Johnson knows best, and seeing where they land, where they match eye to eye in those moments, and then trying to figure out where some of the pieces don't quite fit. Does he need to help Caleb Williams fit into that piece? Or does Ben Johnson have to say, then this is just not going to work that way. I have to work around it. I have to figure out another path forward in this aspect, right? And it's just like this is what I always try to find the simplest example, and it's not an accurate example, but it's like the simplest. It's like Ben Johnson right now is figuring out, can Caleb Williams throw the ball accurately 40 yards down the field? And through this process, he's trying to figure that out. And then through that, he realizes, oh, he can't throw the ball 40 yards down the field. Do I need to just no longer figure out, do I need to figure out how to get more plays that are 35 yards down the field and 30 yards, and that's my limit? Or is there room for him to grow where we can get him to start throwing 40 yards down the field more accurately? Or, oh, he can only do it like once a game, and then after that, it falls off a cliff. Like, it's just, again, I try to figure out the simplest, most dumbest way to paint a very clear picture. Like, that is a big process, a big part of Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams' journey this year. So I don't think it's just going to be flawless. But I do anticipate that it's going to be significantly more successful than it was last year. So again, I at this point, I'm just not entirely sure what the conversation is anymore. Like, it's pretty fascinating how muddled this all is. And if the Bears did win only 9 games and Caleb Williams was clearly significantly better, but the way they lost their games, it was a tough game against the Lions and a big battle against the Eagles or so. Like, I mean, I think it all depends. If they lose, if they go 2-4 in the division and they get smoked by the Lions, smoked by the Packers, but JJ McCarthy's not that good, and he has a rough, season. But they beat them, and they lose to the Commanders, they lose to the Eagles, they lose to the 49ers, they lose to the Ravens, they lose to the Bengals. It's like, even if they were able to, I don't know if the math adds up right there, but like, and they still end up winning like 8 or 9 games throughout that process, then you would be like, okay, yeah, they got better, but like, they were clearly not on the level of the top teams, is what I was trying to highlight. Like, they won a bunch of games, but like, they didn't quite look like they were ready to actually perform. But it's like, if they win only 9 games and a bunch of those games are like great games against the Lions, great games against the Ravens, right? Like, you see a great game against Baltimore, Caleb Williams on the road, and Caleb has a chance to win the game, inside 6 minutes of the fourth quarter, but they just lose, right? Lamar works his magic, and Caleb, even if Caleb throws an interception in the fourth quarter in the final 5 minutes, it's like, all right, I'm not expecting him to be able to win in that situation every single time, especially against a team like the Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson across the field, and Ben Johnson year 1 together. I'm not necessarily expecting that, but I'll still take a victory, the fact that it was close in those moments. So it's not about just the record itself. It's how do these games unfold, which is why I always take issue. And someone called me a hater the other day about this. They said I was a Caleb Williams hater, and it's like, you guys just really just say whatever comes to mind. I've been a massive defender of Caleb Williams, but someone said, a bunch of people are still trying to argue Caleb Williams, look, his stats were comparable to like Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels, and they were within range of Josh Allen, and Josh Allen won the MVP. And it's just like, when you bring up a Josh Allen, like, that's actually the perfect example. Like, yeah, stats can be similar, but how you get them are completely different. So, one of the big things that people keep saying is, oh, look, Caleb Williams, his stats were pretty good. He had 3,500 yards and 20 touchdowns, whatever the heck it was, and only X amount of interceptions. And it's like, yeah, but that doesn't really tell the story. Just like Josh Allen's stats don't tell the story. Just like Jalen Hurts' stats don't tell the story. Just like, Joe Burrow's stats don't tell the, like, you got to actually see how these games unfold and how you're getting those stats, and how are you playing in the big moments? How are you playing in the big games? How is this unfolding? That's matters. Dak Prescott has had years where he's put up awesome numbers, and it's like he feasted against terrible teams and played not so good against great teams. That's not an MVP. It's not how it works. And you could have significantly lower stats than a Dak Prescott in, whatever year you want to use an example. And yet the quarterback is playing significantly better in the big games, but he's just not dominating some of the worst teams. And it's like, okay, so one quarterback has better stats. Like, it's just, you got to focus on how it's unfolding, how the game is actually being played. That matters to me this season more than anything, which is why I abandoned last year, because I was like, there's nothing for me to gain here. I was like, I don't think I'm going to continue to see any growth of Caleb Williams, and I do not care about the outcome. I do not care if they lose the next 5 games. I do not care if Caleb Williams throws another 15 interceptions. Like, none of it matters to me right now, because there is nothing for me to learn right now. And that's why I was just like, it just doesn't matter to me. This year, I'm specifically like, I care about the record, and you want to see them win because you want to see them more organized and be able to be able to execute at a higher level. But at the same time, I'm not going to fall into the trap where it's like, if they win 10 games and Caleb throws for 4,000 yards, whatever the number he put out, like 4,000 yards, 70% completion percent, whatever it was, and if he doesn't, if they only win 9 games, but he throws 3,500 yards again, and 25 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, but he plays great against the Ravens, a really smooth game, 280 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, and he looks really great against the Lions, and he goes toe to toe with Jared Goff, but they come up short and lose. He has a big game, but he has a game where he throws 4 touchdowns against the Minnesota Vikings, but he also has 2 interceptions, but he was playing great, right? And yeah, he had 2 interceptions, but like, he was playing great. He made 1 mistake in the end zone, and it's like, you don't want to see that happen. Bad decision, but overall, still a great game. You just can't live and die by the numbers in these moments, especially with a young quarterback who you're trying to figure out what's what. Which is why I didn't like when he first came out and said, these are the numbers that I'm trying to get. Because it's like, I don't care about that right now. Like, that doesn't matter to me in this moment of time. And the record only matters to me if it's an accurate portrayal of how the season has been unfolding. If it actually shows that this team is clearly more competent, this team is clearly more organized, this team is clearly going in the right direction. That's why I push back, and this will be my last take. People tried to push back and say, the Broncos weren't that good last year. They only beat bad teams, this or that. And it's just like, sometimes that matters to me. If I'm looking at a Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys and I'm evaluating their trajectory of like year 1, year 2, year 3 with Mike McCarthy and Dak Prescott, it's like, it's a different conversation. Same thing if we're talking about the Chiefs or the Eagles or the Ravens, but it's like the Broncos have been such a mess. And you're trying to figure out, is Sean Payton and Bo Nix going to work? Is this team going in the right direction? All this type of stuff. I don't care if they lost to the Chiefs. Like, I don't care if they ended up losing to the Chargers on a short rest, rookie quarterback on the road against a division rival, the Chargers. It's like, that doesn't matter as much to me. It's just like, are you going in the right direction? Are you progressing? Is it clear that Bo Nix and Sean Payton are the coach quarterback duo of the future for the Denver Broncos? That matters so much more. How competent does Bo Nix look in some of these harder games, even in a game that they lost? Yeah, they lost to the Chiefs on the road, but Bo Nix played awesome. I don't care what the stats say. I don't care that they ended up losing. I don't care if that's a loss, a loss in the win-loss column for against a team with a winning record or a playoff team. It's like, that doesn't matter to me because I watched that game with my eyes and I saw a high quality game. That matters to me. That matters to me. I saw even Bo Nix lose to the Cincinnati Bengals against Joe Burrow, but Bo Nix had some unbelievable big time box office plays. That matters to me than just the bottom line. They lost to the Cincinnati Bengals. There you go. He can't beat good quarterbacks. It's just like, no. Watch the game and see how it's unfolding. And that needs to be magnified and heightened and just can't be written any bigger when talking about the Chicago Bears this year. Whew. We did it. We got through it. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Chicago Bears? Do you think the Bears are overhyped after an impressive preseason showing? And how do you think, what do you think the expectation should be for the Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson for that matter? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment, so whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights, but ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.